I am Michael Miano, pastor of the Fellowship Church and soon to be author of Freaked Out by the New Covenant, What Your Life Would, Could, and Should Be, and also a reformer that is constantly preaching that we as Christians and the church need to have a zeal that's empowered by knowledge. The purpose of this video series, Pulling Apart the Strawman, is to present the clear contextual biblical gospel, which entails the good news of Jesus Christ that makes sense, and also to examine through the full scope of Scripture why Jesus came, and how he fulfilled what he came to do, as referenced in 1 John chapter 3, verse 8. Also, through this series, I am defending the in-depth, fulfilled view of prophecy called full preterism, or fulfilled eschatology, that comes under constant attack and criticism by means of contradictions, false claims, and the establishment of a straw man. I am doing this in reference to Jude chapter 1, verse 3, which is defending the faith that was delivered to the saints. So a straw man is and some examples of this would be Brian Schwertley when he makes all these false claims about what full preterists believe about the resurrection. Also, many have said about me, they say that Michael Miano doesn't believe in the resurrection. Also, there are many who claim that the full preterist view of Scripture takes away the gospel hope. And also the most favorite, that Hymenaeus and Philetus controversy in the letters to Timothy is in reference to full preterism. So, to be honest with you, many times these false claims about full preterism bother me because of the sheeple aspect of Christianity. Many people profess Christianity, yet have no knowledge of what they believe, and have fallen victim, and maybe not on purpose, to what a preacher says that is false, because both individuals, maybe the preacher or maybe the people, are failing to study the Scriptures in context. So, throughout this series, we will examine the full preterist gospel, we will examine the false views of the gospel by means of studying and examining the Scriptures as we are told to do through Scripture. We will demolish the strongholds, which is false teachings, as we are told to do through Scripture. We will defend the faith, as we are told to do through Scripture. And when we have questions, and when we have a critique of something, a teaching or something of that matter, we will do as the Bereans did and diligently search the Scriptures. The biggest problem in the church today is hermeneutics and context. Hermeneutics is interpretation. And basically the popular interpretation today comes from just a surface reading of Scripture, which leads to a literal view of everything in Scripture. And this is in contrast to the analogy of faith, which means comparing Scriptures with other Scriptures. And both of these, whether it's the surface reading or the comparing Scriptures with Scriptures, must both have a context to them. And context is getting the full scope of the story. And I'm going to read you something to illustrate my point. And it's actually a joke, and I want you to just listen. As you lie back, your muscles tighten. You put him off for a while, searching for an excuse, but he refuses to be swayed as he approaches you. He asks if you're afraid, and you shake your head bravely. He has no more experience. He has more experience, but the first time his finger has found the right place. He probes deeper and you shiver. Your body tenses, but he's gentle like he promised he'd be. He looks deeply within your eyes and tells you to trust him. He's done this many times before. His cool smile relaxes you and you open wider to give him more room for an easy entrance. You begin to plead and beg him to hurry, but he slowly takes his time, wanting to cause you as little pain as possible. As he presses closer, going deeper, you feel the tissue give way. Pain surges throughout your body, and he looks at you concerned and asks if it's too painful. Your eyes are filled with tears, but you shake your head and nod for him to go on. He begins going in and out with skill, but you are now too numb to feel him within you. After a few moments, you feel something bursting within you, and he pulls it out of you. You lay panting, glad to have it over. He looks at you and smiles warmly, tells you, with a chuckle, that you have been his most stubborn yet most rewarding experience. You smile and thank your dentist. After all, it was your first time to have a tooth pulled. What were you thinking? I remember hearing that joke when I was in high school, and all throughout the story, you know you're thinking of something else. And then at the end, it all ties in that it's actually a visit to the dentist, and that's called a girl's first time, and it's a joke. And that joke illustrates the point of context. We need to understand the full story. This is the same problem we see within the Christian church. Nobody knows the full story. Nobody's getting the full view of Scripture. Nobody's reading Scripture in context. So therefore, you're stuck in the middle of the story not knowing the full scope of what's going on. So throughout this series, we will discuss a contextual view of covenants through Scripture and what is important to understand covenants and why it is so important. We will do a contextual view of the good news of the Messiah and what was expected through the prophecies. We will discuss death, the fall, and the law of Moses. We will discuss salvation and resurrection. We will also discuss heaven, hell, and the afterlife, which should be a favorite to everybody. And then finally, the new heavens and the new earth. And maybe I will insert a bonus video that will bring you up to date historically. It is my honest admission that all of my efforts, the efforts of this series and every effort I have in life, is to be intellectually honest and to be critically loving, in order to create a zeal empowered by knowledge, which is the true form of discipleship, not this subjective, mystical experience falsely labeled Christianity. This will be a historical, contextual, exegetical explanation and examination of the story called the gospel. This will make sense, and it will truly be explainable. That's the good news. From the outset, I must recommend and thank some of the people that I have resources through. First off will be Brian Schwertley's criticisms of the full preterist view that can be found on podcasts. Just Google Brian Schwertley, full preterism. Also, Alan Bondar's book, which has pretty much changed my paradigms and smashed everything I thought I knew, and that is Reading the Bible Through New Covenant Eyes. And also the book I'm currently reading, which is an excellent book I'm reading for the second time, and it's by Timothy Martin and Jeffrey Vaughn, and it's called Beyond Creation Science, From New Covenant Creation, from Genesis to Revelation. I want to thank also my friends and family who have pretty much made this possible by discussing and debating these things with me, as it's been a struggle to kind of find my view. And even those who responded to our last series, Consider Yesterday, which can be found either through our website or on YouTube,